For many people out there, farming isn't just a business, it's a calling. Dr Steve Enticott from CIA Tax joins us for more on this topic. And Dr Steve, what does the day-to-day reality of managing a farm really look like? Take us through this one, this is interesting.
Well, thanks Mike, thanks for saying that, Dr Steve, because I am Dr Steve, an academic in finance, as you know, but I do have a farmer's heart. My dad has been on the land for 50 years in various forms, and I've got a lot of farming interests as well. But interesting enough, Mike, you're a farmer, so you've got a fair bit of
farming adjacent
farming background in back there, and that's some of the key points I want to make today. So farming is very much a lifestyle. For some, it's all in, 100% all in, heavily borrowed, heavily debted. Times come along, fires, droughts, whatever you might think, and they generally run into trouble. And we'll often see in countries, especially in Australia, there's a lot of government bailouts to keep the farmers on the land and all those sorts of things. So what I want to look at, sort of ranching in America, as they call it, or farming here in Australia, it's more than a lifestyle. But it also has to be more than a lifestyle. It also has to have the investment eyes over it. So in my book, Mike, as you've probably read, I always believe that, that's right, the man with a plan. It talks about success comes from two things, or more sometimes. Steve Jobs, great at nothing, good at computers, good at design. A lot of my wealth has come from being good in accounting and mixing that in with agriculture. Agriculture's cycle is up, down, boom, bust, boom, bust, boom, bust, sometimes year after year. But when you've got the stability of an accounting income coming through, you carry the bad years and boom in the good years.
Absolutely.
So I believe bringing lifestyle farming into income that's come from other sources or investment is really the best way to go forward from a farming point of view. And I'm actually seeing it with a lot of the big farming families now. They are diversifying. They have share portfolios, they have rental properties, they have things outside of the land to be able to sustain them through the bad times as well.
Absolutely. And so, as you mentioned, from bushfires to the market crashes we're seeing at the moment, how do farmers handle unpredictability? Because at the end of the day, you've still got to get up early, crack of dawn, you've still got to get out there, make sure the cows are fed, etc. You're driving back and forth up to every paddock from which way to north. How do you do it?
Well, I think you got to love it. So I have clients who'll come to me and say, Steve, you've done well in farming over the years. I want to be in farming too.
Yeah.
Okay, they don't get it. They don't get the fact that you might have to be up at 2 a.m. fixing a fence somewhere to put stock back in or whatever it might be. So farming has to come from an aspect of I actually want to do it. If you're in farming, you don't want to do it, it won't work.
Yeah.
So the way you handle those ups and downs is you actually got to remind yourself that I'm doing this because I love it. We lost a farm this year to fire, as you may know, and it's gut wrenching when it goes through the Grampians fire in Victoria. But at the end of the day, 6 months later, I'm now watching new fences go off. I'm watching things starting to recover and come back again. But it is terrible when you go through it. Now, for me, as an accountant, I wasn't necessarily reliant on the income from that property. So I can ride out those years and go, all right, well, that's a bad year. Hopefully it never happens again in my lifetime, and we move on from there.
And of course, when there's things going wrong, farms build strong communities as well, townships, etc. How important is that bond based on what you've seen?
Well, in Australia, we call it your mates. And, generally, your farmers are all mates because they all know the ups and downs well, and they all know how to support each other. One farming I look at and I really struggle is the broad acre farming. You are spending millions of dollars of getting your crop and you're waiting on rain. Will it rain? Won't it rain?
Pennies from heaven.
That's right. And then it might be ready to go, and then you get a storm, and it takes all the crop out right at the end.
Yeah.
It's a tough game. So being able to work with your mates, stick in with your mates, being involved in that community, part of the local fire brigade, whatever it might be, is essential in getting you through.
Sustainability, obviously a huge part of this as well. I think a lot of people out there want to be sustainable, but they also don't want to have to, worry about things being more expensive, perhaps technology being different, change, etc. How important, and I guess how are farmers adjusting their practices?
Absolutely, this is a big one. So if you look at it as the sustainable practices of 100 years ago, they weren't there. It was bulldoze everything you possibly could, and make it look like the hills of England or whatever it might be, and it wasn't even that environment. Well, those sort of practices have been shown up in a lot in Africa too. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
You need to have a balance. My view is we do need farming land. It is essential. We need to feed the world. world. But we also need bushland and we need diversity. So every farming should be looking at their farms and their bush corridors and all sorts of things connecting into nature to be able to provide a better outcome in most cases to crop yields. But more importantly, it's what the market wants.
Yeah.
It's a consumer. Okay, so most consumers will just walk in and pay the lowest price. All right, so they're not the people we're trying to pitch to. Not everyone's like that. We've got to look at the new consumer that's going, what's the probity of all this? Okay, what's this doing to the planet? And if you can start to answer those questions, then you're going to put yourself ahead of the curve.
Dr. Steve, one of the things you generally go to is a tax-deductible life. You love it. Take us through a bit about it.
Absolutely. There's nothing happier than tax-deductible life. That's a Dr. Steveism, if you like. I tell everybody that. If you're in farming, you should be in farming because you love being in farming. So when you go buy all your farming tools and implements, you actually love what you're buying.
And there's some cool stuff out there.
That's right. There's some very cool stuff. And knowing that you're doing that in a tax-efficient way is a wonderful experience. But I think the number one thing we really need to tick off on is risk management.
Yes.
So farming is all about risk management. For me, it's about not being all in. It's having other investments, cash reserves, share reserves, other property that isn't farming property. So that will carry you in those bad years. It's about acknowledging that farming is not a good year every year.
Yes.
And there will be bad years, and bad years are normal. What have I got to sustain me through those bad years? So it's more than a lifestyle. It's got to be both. It's got to be a lifestyle and it's got to be investment. And when you get those two things right, you're a very, very powerful force in farming.
Dr. Steve, I want to thank you for digging into this one with me today on the program, and I look forward to speaking to you again very soon.
Thanks, Mike.
And just a quick reminder that the information provided in this segment is for informative purposes